Good morning and welcome to day 4, number 102 with Frank Scalish channeling his inner man on vacation shirt.
That's right. I had to don the man on vacation shirt because I'm already sick of the weather here.
Yeah, it is. It has been nasty. It's rained an absolute ton here. I'll tell you, when you came down for show 100 a couple weeks ago, you hit it absolutely perfect. The following Thursday, I was actually out and in like an inch of ice.
Perfect.
So there was no way you could have gotten on the water. And then this Thursday, today, it has rained like 4 inches the last 2 days. So everything would have been absolutely blown out. So for a change, the weather gods blessed us with good weather in our favor at the moment that you had it. So,
and I have to say that was a lot of fun. I mean, I had an absolute blast.
Cost you some money. You've called and said, you cost me a lot of money.
Well, yeah, you did, you rotten bastard, because I had so much fun doing that, and I don't have forward-facing sonar yet.
Frankie does.
Frankie does, and so I know that I can take the techniques that you showed me down there and apply them here, and catch giant crappies. So of course, because I have a problem, my OCD with fishing, I came home and I bought an awful lot of Bobby Garland to the tune of close to $400 worth.
You don't get that stuff, Frank? I mean, you literally like work for that. You can't just call up and say, "Hey, I need some crappie plastics."
Yeah, I could, but I wanted it now.
Look at that stuff. You got all of the goods in there in the soft plastics.
Absolutely. So I got my Bobby Garland order in, and I was so excited. And then I said, well, I want a certain type of jig head for this technique, and I got a do it mold and bought some hooks, because
you could show those too. I know you showed them beforehand, but is it okay to show them? Oh, there they are.
Yeah, so I got,
look at that.
So I got them, and I painted the jig heads to match the soft plastics, and it's got the right hook in it.
What color or what shape jig head is that?
It's almost like it's
half
like
egg.
Yeah, it's like a half egg shape.
I got you.
And so, and then this is what it looks like rigged up.
Oh my gosh. Oh, right. Frank, I need some of those, Uncle Frank. Some
right?
of those jig heads. That is amazing because the paint job on it matches the plastic.
Yeah, I did that. I mixed the paint to actually match the plastic.
What's the hook in there? Tom was wanting to know.
It's a Gamakatsu, 90 degree. I don't know the exact numbers. I'd have to run downstairs and look on it. But you
are kind of obsessed because that's.
Yeah, I am very obsessed, and this is a problem that I've had since birth, apparently. But so I got that all dialed in. Next thing I'm gonna do, I'll have to talk to you, and we'll go over the long rods you're using.
That's your own fault, because I offered to give you one before you headed home, and you refused to take it.
Yeah, because I'm an idiot. I mean,
I had him sitting right there, Frank.
I know. I should have swiped it, to be honest with you. But
you should have said, thanks, I appreciate it. I'm headed to Cleveland.
Right, but you know what, dude? I feel bad taking stuff from people. So, you
got the have you had any of the fillets yet?
Oh God, yeah, dude.
Oh, really? You've been doing the crappie fry.
Right. So here's the deal. Okay, these crappies were nice. They were super nice. So it works out good because you don't have to thaw out a lot of fish to have a meal. So what I've been doing is I've been doing fish, beef, deer meat, and I alternate them throughout the week.
I like it.
Yeah, so it's been great because I mean, I can't wait for Sunday, because Sunday we're gonna do rabbit, but but
fresh from the garden,
fresh from the garden. So you screwy rabbit. But so anyway, so the reality of it is that I don't eat a lot of garbage junk food.
Mm-hmm.
probably drink too much beer, but I don't eat a lot of junk food.
Hey, I've stopped doing that over the last week and a half, Frank. I had a couple beers last night. My buddy Juice made some. Oh, Juicy's the one who came over. You guys bloviated for 3. I was so tired. You guys bloviated for 3 hours.
That's right. We did.
I did elk burgers.
Oh, nice.
Smoked elk burgers last night. I went over to his house. It was phenomenal. Literally the best burger I've ever had. He cuts in some pork fat, and then he does some bacon on the Traeger as well.
Yeah.
And some like fresh Gouda cheese on top of that. And then he makes this like aioli sauce with little bits of relish in it that goes over it on a toasted bun. It was top notch.
Dude, you're making me hungry already.
But I had not had a legit elk burger. He drew a tag in Oklahoma, like one of 4 tags in this deal. And anyway, ended up with an elk. So
perfect. That's what you're supposed to do when you go hunting. You're supposed to shoot something.
All right, let's get some structure. Let's get some structure to this chaos right here, Uncle Frank.
Okay,
here's what we're gonna do. We have a giveaway today. The number 14 color number 7 spook. Now, 2 weeks ago on BTL on the 100 show, we said, hey, if you tag or send a picture of you just wearing day 4 BTL stuff to me or Frank. If you don't have social media, you could email it. You post it on Instagram, Facebook, any of that stuff. And so throughout the 2 weeks, anything that's been sent to us or tagged that we know of, we compiled and then did we did an analysis. We had a little chat about it, and we came up with who's going to get spook number 14 labeled. So we will give that away at the end of the show.
We will announce it.
That's called a hook right there. Keep them hooked, Frank.
I love it.
It's like the sturgeon. Just keep them by the hook. So we will do that. Second of all, this is the last show that I will be able to talk about being up in Minnesota, New Prague, Minnesota, this Saturday, February 11th, the day before the Super Bowl, 5 to 10 p.m. at Giesenbauer Beer Company in New Prague, Minnesota. It is a collaboration between the Crappie Chronicles. There's my Crappie Chronicles hat that I have on right there, and BTL to raise money for St. Jude. The Dick Hiley St. Jude Bass Classic, the first week of May. Adam Bartuzik and I are doing it. They raised over $740,000 last year. This is the 25th anniversary, and they're over $5 million in donations to St. Jude. You just show up, $10 to get in the door. They have the Break Your PB specialty brew beer for the Crappie Chronicles. They have their own beer because they're big time.
Perfect.
All the guys are going to be there. I'm going to be there. $500 Pro Guide gift card, gift certificate available for anything on the Pro Guide website. Tons of clothing, tackle, high-end rods, ice houses, everything. So if you're in Minnesota around the New Prague area, well worth your time to head out for that. If you have any questions, I've had 4 or 5 guys that have been like, hey, I'm interested in coming to this. What are the actual details? I put it up on my story as well. DM me, Instagram, at Matt Pangrak, shoot a message on Facebook if you want to the BTL page. So that's that. So I will be there in person. Oh, I got a bunch of BTL hats, decals, buffs to give away at that thing too.
Perfect.
So next, your hometown continues to make news with the walleye cheaters. Did you see the most recent development of that?
I did not, and I'll tell you why I did not. Because I've heard it so much that I quit tuning into it. So give me the details, bud.
Okay. Well, one of the guys tried to use counterfeit $100 bills to pay for bowling and got caught.
What?
Yeah. Man accused in phishing scandal faces new charge after bowling alley incident.
So basically,
Chase Comiskey.
Once a cheater, always a cheater.
Yeah, the bills had the writing for motion picture purposes and not legal tender on them, and other marking showed they were fake. Basically, him and his 18-year-old son passed the bills to an employee, and then the son claimed, this is a truncated version, that he didn't know that they were fake, that he sold an Xbox, and that's what he got it for. But there's phone records of him texting his dad, who was the walleye cheater, holy crap, it worked. So It's kind of caught red-handed there.
Wow, man, what a way to pass down what a way to pass that down to your children.
Yeah. So I mean, it doesn't sound like what it's coming out as to me. Then it doesn't sound like this guy was really in it for the fishing glory. He's just a con man who
Right.
happened to see an opportunity in the fishing.
100%.
Had nothing to do with the guy that was like, "Oh, I'm into fishing. I'm doing whatever it takes to win." It was a guy that was trying to make money through scams, as we've
Oh,
seen
yeah.
through the charges that have come out completely unrelated to fishing in the 6 months after it.
I just can't. I don't know. I don't know, dude. I mean, it's that's a bunch of crap.
You following anything that's going down in Florida right now? Big time weights going down on Okeechobee right now.
Yeah, I saw that. I mean, they're catching them. That looks like it would be a lot of fun to be there right now.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, well, let's see how the rest of the tournament goes. You know what I mean? I mean, they had a lot of 20-pound bags come in,
Mm-hmm.
which
Good
is
stuff.
Yeah, which is crazy good.
All right. We got another deep dive today. We got a really good show lined up for today. Last week, a lot of good feedback on setting up your boat, not just the prop, but setting up your motor height to make sure your boat is running properly. A lot of good feedback on that, but there's a lot of guys who are on the bank, a lot of guys who are in kayaks, a lot of guys who are in mini boats, things like that. So this is applicable to everybody, and something that especially after what we saw go down on Toledo Bend this past weekend with a 39-15 bag caught primarily on a football head jig.
Holy smokes, man.
And it was deep, and he was dragging it on hard spots, and he smashed him. He was loaded to the cork. Let's just say that. Merchandise still available. Shop BTL, basso.com. Also the new hoodies, all that still available if you're interested in that.
I should be donning my day 4 gear, but I had to go.
No. I like it's
festive.
It's a mental standpoint. But today's topic is
football jigs.
I like it.
And not because of the 39-pound bag, because honestly, I didn't even know about that until just now.
Well, now you do. Now your mind's blown. I've hit you with all sorts of breaking news today.
Yes, my mind is blown. So I don't have diagrams today because this episode here is not really. You don't really need diagrams for it. This is really going to simplify your football jigging techniques. So I'm going to dive into, first of all, I'm grabbing stuff here, as you can
football head
see.
jigs.
Yes.
Scott said, I didn't hear the topic. The office is way too loud. Football head jigs.
You tell those guys to be quiet when you're at work listening.
Is it football jigs or football head jigs?
I just call them football jigs, but it's probably football headed jigs, to be honest with you.
But yeah, literally, that is probably the least important thing.
It is the very least important. Okay, so the first thing that, I'm gonna, you guys, okay, so here, you're gonna get like real information here, because I'm actually gonna physically show you my favorite football jig skirts. A couple of which I make myself, and a couple are store-bought. So you're going to see what I actually use, and honestly, I don't deviate from them. I mean, my football jig box is the easiest box I have. So let's start out with, you know what? I'm going to start out with sizes first, and then I'm going to go into 3 techniques that I employ probably 90% of the time. And then I'll talk about how you know you're in the right place when you're fishing it and stuff like that. Then I want to get into the trailers, because the trailers are very, very important, because they each do something different. So we'll get into that too. So I guess without further ado, let's roll, right? So it's no secret to anybody who knows me, I throw, and I'm just saying this because you can use any football jig you want. And I have no affiliation with this company whatsoever, but I throw Jules football jig. I like the hook in it. In fact, I will show you to. I like that bend in the hook right there. This I feel holds the bass better. I don't lose a ton of fish on this football jig, which is why I throw it. I've experimented with other hook designs on these things and have lost a lot of fish. This is the only one that I use. I don't even own another one at this point. So that's Jewel. So what I do is I have literally my two favorite sizes are 5/16 and 3/4. Now I do have halves, but the 5/16 I think I can I can drag it nice and slow with it, and I can work it through standing timber. When I go to the half, I got to keep it moving a little bit quicker, and the half is a little troublesome in timber. And 3/4 ounce most of the time is pure structure, no wood
Okay.
cover on it whatsoever. So I guess with that, my weights are easy, so I don't carry a lot of football jigs with me. I don't have to.
And you carry them all unskirted until you build
Every one of them's unskirted until I build it, because I never know what the water conditions are going to give me. And so
Okay.
then, because here's what happens. Okay, uh, I have my football jigs are the easiest. I literally have 5 colors. Okay, but flipping jigs and stuff could be cumbersome, and if you have all your jigs with skirts on them, you're carrying twice the amount of jigs. Because here, look, it's a lot easier to open up your jig box. In fact, this is my entire jig box right here.
Oh, wow.
Flipping jigs and football jigs. So they're not skirted, okay, until I need them. So what I carry in this box is Ziplocs full of skirts. See, this is one that I make up. It's called just blue.
Olive. No, it says turn it
Blue.
around. It's got the name on it.
Yeah, it's bluegrass. Bluegrass purple.
It says
So
olive on the front, though, doesn't it?
no.
Oh. Oh, yeah. I don't know why I thought that. Bluegrass purple.
Okay, so what I do is I roll them up nice and tight, squeeze the air out of the bag, and then I keep my skirt colors in the box. So the box is real easy to deal with, because now I'm not taking up a lot of room with having to have 6 jigs of every skirt color. So I can put a dozen jigs of one size in the box and then have my skirts separate, and then just slap the skirt on when I, whatever water conditions dictate. I do this with my flipping jigs. All my jigs are in this little box, believe it or not. It weighs a ton because there's a lot in there, but it's small. It doesn't take up a lot of room in the boat. So that's kind of how I carry the stuff. So what I want to do is I want to talk about the ways I fish it, and then I'll get into what I'm looking for when I fish it. But my first technique is basically a slow drag. So it's almost like I Carolina rig fish. I cast it out, let it get to the bottom, and then I slowly drag it, pick up my slack, drag it, pick up my slack, drag it. That's probably the technique that I use the most. Very effective. Now, people are going to say, well, why wouldn't you throw a Carolina rig that? Because you're fishing the same. You're fishing the same way. Well, here's the deal. I have gone out where, for whatever the reasons, the bass don't want the rig. They're eating off the bottom, they're rooting around in the rocks, and they want the football jig. Conversely, I've seen the same thing the opposite way, where they don't touch a football jig, but they'll annihilate a Carolina rig. So whenever I'm structure fishing, and I'll preface this again because I say this every show that I talk about structure fishing. Whenever I'm structure fishing, Carolina rig, football jig, deep crankbaits. Those are my 3 tools for pure offshore summertime structure fishing. I don't ever not have those out when I'm structure fishing.
Mm-hmm.
So the next technique that I want to talk about actually was invented on Kentucky Lake, and it was not done with a football jig. It was just done with a heavy 3/4 ounce regular flipping jig. Like you could use the War Eagle Jiu-Jitsu jig is actually perfect for it because it's the right weight. I believe it's 9/16. It's called stroking. So when you pull up to your ledge or your rock pile or your long tapering point, you cast it out, you let it hit the bottom. Now this is when I'm going to use my 3/4 ounce, or if the fish want a slow fall, I'll go back to the 5/16. But what you do is you cast it out, it hits the bottom. You snap the rod tip straight up in the air and let the jig fall down. So you're not taking the jig and making it do that. You're taking the jig and you're making it do that. You want to keep it right.
And how far is it coming? What, like 2-3 feet off the bottom?
2-3 feet off the bottom. You're not dropping the rod tip to the water and then going, whoa.
Yeah, and it's real crisp.
It's crisp. It's a clean snap straight up. So the jig goes straight up and down, straight up and down. This stroking technique can be absolutely disgusting. I've had fish literally almost take the rod out of my hand when they hit the thing. Very aggressive bite. It's not a peck. It's not a just getting heavy kind of deal. They maul this thing. Fun technique to use, but you'll have your ass will be wore out at the end of the day doing that all day. The other thing I like to do is I'll almost work it like a wobble head. That's the other technique where I just keep it humming. I keep it on the bottom, keep it banging stuff, and I'm just keep reeling it in. Then I have to use the 3/4 because you can't keep the other ones on the bottom going that rapidly. That's another technique where when the fish hits it, he smokes it, and there's no guesswork. There's zero guesswork. So that brings me to rod and line choices here. With each,
real quick.
Go
so
ahead.
When you talk about reeling it like the structure bug, they do that in Oklahoma. It's basically how the like you said, the biffle bug was invented, but they called it back in the day when I was first fishing it, scrubbing a football head, because you are scrubbing the bottom with it, basically casting it up into 2-3 foot on pea gravel, on chunk rock, reeling it in so it's tick 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 tick. And a lot of the old timers would just slowly reel in that football head, which then transitioned into the biffle bug and hard head.
Correct.
Little side note.
No, but that's exactly true. That's exactly how the wobble head was born, and it's a great technique. You can cover water fast doing that.
And before we get to it, I'll show you why it works.
Do it.
Here's why it works. Because this is what a crawfish looks like while it's swimming.
Isn't that a great picture?
Do you see that? Look at that. Yeah. There's your stroke in the jig. Watch this right here. I wasn't trying to derail you here, but when we were preparing, watch this coming up right here. Watch how it, see that?
It's perfect.
That's the stroke in the jig, right?
Exactly.
There. That's what you're imitating. And then on this part where you're just reeling it, that's what you're imitating. That's an actual crawfish and how it rolls underwater. There you go.
Isn't that cool? That's great footage, dude.
Yeah.
How'd you hold your breath that long?
That footage was actually, I got that from the cloud after I dropped my iPhone in Lake Hartwell in October.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. That's
all right.
Good.
All right. Tackle now.
Okay. Where was I before I was so rudely interrupted? I don't even remember where I was.
You said you were going to, starting to go into tackle.
Okay. So the rod is another important key. I like I throw a Powell 775 for my football jigs. Um, it's a 7 foot 5 inch medium heavy, but it's got a super fast tip on it. So the tip flexes a lot. Now it loads right after that, but it flexes a lot. And I want that flexibility in the tip of the rod because I can feel everything that jig is doing down there. Okay. Um, the other thing is now line size is real tricky. You won't believe this, but I have football jig with 10, 12, 14, 17.
Wow.
And 10 is spooky on a football jig. But on table rock, I was getting more bites on 10 on sloping areas. And then I went to the 14 and the 17 when I was fishing standing timber. So more likely than not, if I'm football jigging with 17. But I have gone lighter. Now, the Great Lakes is a different animal. Okay. I've football jigged on Lake Erie with 10, 12, 14, and 17. The problem with the Great Lakes is the zebra mussels. 10 and 12 is not going to hold up. You hit one rock the wrong way, and the hook set, you're going to lose the fish. So I had to go heavier on the big lake with the football jig because it's nasty down there.
2015-16 zebra mussels got in the lower end of grand.
Yeah.
And you pull it over a brush pile, well, there'd be zebra mussels on everything. So I mean, for 2 years, that's kind of what flipped the lake there up to the kind of Wolf Creek sailboat bridge, Honey Creek area, is because for that 2 or 3 years, you would literally be down lake. You'd drag your football jig over your pile. You had 10 foot of visibility because they're filtering the
Filter
clear
feeders.
water. And you'd go to make another cast and you would send that freaking 1 ounce or 3/4 ounce football jig. I mean, it's like I vividly remember fishing one Nichols there. Have you ever golfed, Frank?
Very poorly, and only when I was a
Okay.
youth.
So you know that there's a feeling when you're standing on the tee box and you're like, I cannot go right. Like right is lawsuit city, like into houses, apartment complexes, parking lots. It's a weird feeling being on the boat while you're, off a point that has a $2.5 million house up on the hill, and you're launching a football jig, and all of a sudden, because of the zebra mussels and the nicks in your line, it's still there. And then when you cast it at that perfect moment, that sucker just keeps sailing, and you've got just a chunk of lead headed towards a $2 million house. Same feeling as when you duck hook a golf ball into a housing complex. I mean, it was bad. Like you'd go through like 30 of them.
Oh yeah,
Couldn't
and
keep them on. You'd set the hook and it'd just be straight air.
Yeah, and that's exactly. I could just imagine. You're like, ooh, what a cast.
I mean, it just, yeah. I mean, dude, yeah.
That's outstanding. But yeah, and that's the problem. That's the problem on the Great Lakes is the zebra mussels. So I use heavier line when I'm football jigging out there for them, just because of that reason. And the zebs are spreading to other lakes, like you just attested to. So that's kind of my setup. Now I will say this: little difficult stroking a jig with a long fishing rod like that. Because there's a lot of movement and a lot of weight to the rod. So when I'm doing that, I'll hold the rod at like 10 o'clock, and I'll just hop it up like that when I'm doing it, and then reel down to it. But it's trickier. Stroking's trickier with a 7.5 foot rod. So you just want to be cognizant of that. Now I do fish these things in standing timber a lot. Very meticulously. You got to be very meticulous, because they have a tendency. They're built for the rocks. They're built to wobble and go through the rocks and not hang up as easily in the rocks. They're not quite the best wood jig on the planet, but they do fish well through the wood if you're meticulous about it. The other thing football jigs don't do well in is grass. They snag a lot of grass.
Hmm.
There was a lake that I had never been to, and I went there the first time, and it had a lot of grass in it. It was summer, and I had all my usual summertime suspects out. And I was looking for rock piles on the outside edges of the grass because anybody that fishes up north knows if you find rock piles on the outside edges of the grass, you're going to find bass there. So I found this one break line, and it had grass that went all the way down to 12 to 14 feet. The rock pile came out there. As the rock pile got a little deeper, the grass got a little more sporadic till the grass disappeared entirely. It was kind of a perfect spot. So I rocketed the football jig out there, and not being familiar with this structural element because I had never been there prior. I threw it in a heavy swatch of grass, and I was trying just to pull it, tight line it, and have it poof through the grass. It wouldn't come through, so I snatched it really hard.
Hmm.
It rocketed through the grass, and my rod loaded up, and I got one. And I'm like, holy crap. So I fired out again, and I got onto the rocks. I'm bumping rocks, bumping rocks. I get into an isolated clump of grass. I bog it down, and I pop it through the grass, and boom, I got another one. So it can work in certain situations. Now, hydrilla and milfoil, you can bust it through. Coontail, not a chance in hell. It's just going to glob on the bait, and you're never going to get it off. So the football jig can work in those instances, but if I know I got a really good grass rock mix, I'm going to go to a traditional flipping jig, only I'm going to go to the heavier ones because it comes through the grass nicer. I'll still stroke it through the grass, I'll still pop it through the grass, but it's going to give me a little bit more um, high percentage casts because I'm not going to hang it up as much in the grass. And that's pretty much my mentality on the football jig. I've won a lot of money on a football jig, and I've caught a lot of bass on a football jig. So let's go to colors. Let's do colors. Um, I don't get crazy with football jig colors. I do not get crazy with it. You don't have to. So for my first color, and this is a jewel color. This is not one of my colors. It's just really simple. It's brown and purple.
Hmm.
Brown and purple. It's as easy as they get.
Like purple flash or whatever. What is that
Yeah,
called?
it's purple flash is exactly what it's called. So it's just the brown with the purple flash.
Yep.
Now, I'll team this up with my trailer will be green pumpkin orange, green pumpkin blue, green pumpkin purple.
Something with a little contrast in it, though, not solid.
Right, not solid. And this is pretty much, store bought. Another store bought color that I use a lot, and this is also Jules color. It's green pumpkin candy with purple. This is a very subtle skirt in the water. It's not very flashy, not very vibrant. Again, my trailer choices are going to be in my browns and green pumpkins with this. However, I have used black and blue on it to give me a really hard contrast. One of the most successful places that I've ever really contrasted a football jig where I used a black and bluish skirt with a green pumpkin candy trailer was Kentucky Lake before the grass carp came in to that place. They wanted the contrast there. So when I learned that was decades ago. When I learned that, I always will have one contrasting color, whether it's a green pumpkin type skirt with a dark trailer or the opposite. I'll always have one contrasting color because sometimes it makes a difference. Now, the other skirt color that I throw, and I actually make this one, I'm trying to get it to flare out because I haven't thrown this one in the water yet. It's kind of like a magic craw color, but it's got little purple metallic in there as well.
Little green pumpkin-y.
Little green pumpkin. You can see some of the purple flashes when I move it, but
And
it's
a little
very
bit of blue.
right, a little bit of blue, and I like that baby blue, that robin egg color in it. This one here, probably my color I start with almost everywhere I go.
Just good
Unless,
universal color matches
yeah,
a lot of crawfish or even a little, maybe a bluegill or something down there.
right. And then I use my trailer to enhance it.
Yep.
I'll use like a Bama Magic color or a Magic Cross Swirl color, or I'll go straight green pumpkin blue or straight green
It's
pumpkin
basically
purple.
like a suit. You got a black suit and a navy suit. It just depends on which one you want to wear. And then
Right.
your flare is going to be your trailer, which is going to be your shoes.
Right. Now another skirt that I don't think they make anymore, so I started making them, but Ohio Pro Lures used to make this for me when I fished the Bassmasters. It's black and blue with a little bit of purple in it. I don't know if you could see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that looks really good.
This is my black and blue skirt of choice. Again, I'll match the colors. I'll use black with blue flake or black with the powder blue belly on it as a trailer. Now, this is my other skirt, and this is probably the most natural skirt color I make. It's got a lot of it's got blue, green pumpkin blue. It's also got a magic craw in it, and I don't know if you can see it. I'm trying to get it to reflect. There you go.
Yep. Right there.
So it's also got that this is a very natural color to me. This is my second go-to color all the time. And that's literally all my football jig skirts, just 5. If I can't catch them on one of those 5, they're not on a football jig, and you might as well start looking at a different technique, in my opinion. So you see I got a monster-sized trailer on this.
Yes.
Okay, this is the Big Yum Bad Mama, which to my dismay, they stopped making that years ago. One of my all-time favorite football jig trailers on earth. Nothing, in my opinion, is better. I beg every day to have this trailer come back.
Now, can you get one that's a smaller size now?
Yes. No.
No.
They just, I think they just discontinued the smaller size, which I also have here to show you a comparison, because this is my favorite football jig trailer. So you see the big one and the little one. Here, I can do this. Let me get this skirt out of the way. I actually literally cut this off of my rod this morning, which disturbs me. I don't like messing with my tackle.
But it does. It has a flatter profile, so yeah,
right.
It's very nice.
It's got the flat profile, but it's wide. But you can see the difference between the little one and the big one.
Absolutely.
Now I throw both. The problem is I'm almost out of these, but I got about 12.5 bags of these left.
Yeah, I'm looking on LureNet. I don't see it.
Yeah, I've been begging them for that to come back. So okay, so
you ought to have a little power over there now, Frank, after the old Color 7 sellout. I'm just saying. I mean,
I'm working on this.
If I was LureNet, if Uncle Frank called, I would answer that call based on what history has shown.
Exactly. You know what? And
that's me saying this, not you. I don't want to get you in trouble.
No, literally, swear to God, that is my all-time 100% favorite football jig trailer on earth. Now, that's not the only trailer, okay? So we're going to dive into this right now, and I just grabbed a handful of stuff. Okay, so the big, I had one not rigged, the big one and the little one, to show you the difference.
Okay. That's significant. There's nothing else on the market like it, because everything else is round instead of flat.
Right. That thing, oh my God, that just does magic on a football jig. Okay, so now let's talk about, we're going to go traditional. This is the Yum Craw chunk.
Yep.
Okay. I believe Net Baits has a bait, a pocket chunk, very similar in action. So here's the deal. Those legs, they flap out like this when you're moving the football jig, or if you're dragging it slowly, they're on the bottom just doing all that nonsense. Okay. That's the nature of this trailer.
Dragon trailer.
Dragon trailer. Okay, slow working it. That's the nature of that one. The Bad Mama is more like a twin tail grub, where those legs are just going, they're just doing everything mentally.
More of a scrub and reeling it across the bottom and stroking
yeah,
it.
Right. And I do drag that a lot too. Okay. So now I want to get into the original trailers for football jigs were twin tail grubs.
Yep.
You can see this one's the black and blue one.
Mm-hmm.
Twin tail grubs.
See, would you be okay throwing that exact grub that's in your hand? Would you be okay throwing?
Yeah, this was one of my go-to grubs.
But see, it's got that little baby crease in it. I would have to boil that tail before I could.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, you're talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's my OC. My OCD kicks in where I'm like, you got a wonky. I'm just.
No.
Are you a boiler? Will you boil?
I'll boil it a little bit, get it nice and soft, and then here's what I do. I'm going to show you right now.
Oh, perfect.
So then I'll lay it on a paper towel or a napkin.
Perfect, like that.
So it stays perfectly flat.
I like it.
Okay, now this one's all wrinkled up because I grabbed it out of the bottom of a bag. And I haven't.
But that's how you can fix it, because you want both of those things to be even. It's going to reduce line twists. It's going to help with the symmetry of leveling that out, and it's also going to look better for you in your head.
Correct. Well, and it moves better. And here, when you boil a bait down, a soft plastic, you better watch your boil time. Okay, because we used to do this back in the old days. Remember the lure, the Salty Sensation? It was here. Shut the hell up, Matt.
I have a Salty Sensation story, Frank.
Okay, so anyway, you know what it is? They call them turkey foot worms.
Oh, I am beyond familiar with it. Yes.
Okay, so we used to boil those down, make them super soft, and then I would on the Ohio River I would flip them on a 1/8 ounce slip sinker. And when you would pull it up over a limb, because you boiled it so soft, you pull it up over a limb, it would literally crawl over the limb. I mean, like literally like that. The problem was if you were casting and you flipping and you hit a branch, it would wrap around the branch and stick to it and never come off because they were so soft. So your boil times are critical on this. If you overboil them, you ruin it. If you underboil them, you don't fix it. So you got to be real careful. I mean,
I do like 10 seconds. Like just get a little pot of water. I hold it with the tongs. I just drop it in. I'm not boiling the entire bait. I'm just getting that tail. I'm laying it out on a piece of paper, a cookie sheet, something like that. I'm taking some table salt. I'm putting a light layer table salt down. When that thing comes out, I'm arranging it exactly how I want it, and I'm leaving it.
And you leave it.
And then the next day, you've got 50. That's what I do with all of my plastics that don't come in bubble packs.
Right, that don't come individually.
You can do. I mean, it's not when you say boil. It's not like you're dumping it in there like it's Kraft mac and cheese.
Right, you're making
just dipping
spaghetti.
that tail in to soften it, make it pliable, putting it into the shape that you want, holding it, and then it will hold that shape.
Correct. I have a special boiling pan because if you boil soft plastics with the scents they put in them today, in your cooking utensils, you're up for a bad road. So so we
maybe you got someone to yell at you. I don't. I can just go boil them in my pots, and then I can make you food, and you don't know any better.
No, it's like, dude, where did you get that flavoring from? That is outstanding. Okay, so now I have to address two trailers here, the craw trailers. Okay, the spine craw. Now I will interchange the spine craw and I'll interchange the Yum spine craw and the Zoom speed craw. They're interchangeable. Both legs have wildly fast, tight action to them. It's like a speedboat in the water. So these two, this and the Speed Craw are interchangeable. The reason that I like this is because of the length it gives me. I can have more sitting off the back of the jig. So the legs become unimpaired with the skirt. I can get them back far enough without having to trim the skirt way down. So that's the reason the Yum Spine Craw has started to become a very prominent trailer in my football jigs, because I needed the length, but I didn't want the bulk. That's that. Now let's talk about the Christie Craw. So the Christie Craw has wild actions on its claw. They do different things. They're just constantly doing all this crazy stuff. So we have the super tight claws, the Yum Spine Craw, Zoom Speed Craw, and we have the wild legs of the Christie Craw. So you see now my trailer, I got one other trailer, but my trailer choices, they all do something different. Okay. So this is experimentation, because the bass will show you a preference. And when they do, and you have the right combination, it's a money combo. Sometimes it's a little painful. Like if I get bites and they're not taking it good, if they're just bumping it, then I start monkeying with the trailer, because clearly they can see the color. They're just not committing on it.
That's smart.
So like here, the big giant, you guys are going to freak out. The big giant bad mama. If you knew the amount of smallmouth I catch on this, you'd lose your mind. I was on a lake, an inland lake, and I was catching smallies on a football jig, and I was using the small bad mama trailer, and they were like and I had to keep it moving, and then the rod would load up and I would get them. So I said, this is ludicrous. They're monkeying, they're not committing. So I put the big trailer on. I threw it out there. I started bringing it back. Dude, they didn't hesitate for 1 nanosecond.
Wow.
They freaking loaded on it. And I said, oh, this is goofy. I mean, the bells went off. You know what I mean? So there's method to the madness. Now, here's a trailer that probably, I'm going to say probably 100,000% overlooked. And that's the Money Craw.
Oh,
right here. Now I Carolina rig this. I use it as a jig trailer. I use it as a football jig trailer. This bait here is bad. This thing, the legs on this thing, when you think they would go out and wild on it based on the shape, but they don't. They come in and they do all this stuff real close to the body. So you get a slender profile and everything's moving close to the body of the jig. This thing is an animal on a Carolina rig and a football jig. Probably one of my favorites. Well, I just showed you all my favorites, so it's not probably, it is. And that's really my trailers that I use on it. Now, I'll tell you why I started going to this. Because back in the day, I started using brush hogs for trailers. And it looked really cool, and I caught fish on it. But something about that didn't look right to me, the way I wanted it to be in the water. It wasn't
a package.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was like I just put it on because I ran out of a trailer. And I wanted something that kept it a little more streamlined, and then this was the deal right here.
It's very interesting if you look at it. There's a lot of big, giant, flangey trailers out there.
Yes.
And I would say day in and day out, the more productive ones are the ones that look less sexy in the water. They collapse instead of flare. Because if you go back to that crawfish, we can get real deep in the weeds here. If you go back to that crawfish video,
they're tight.
Those crawfish go tight They don't, and so the only time that you see, so like, those big giant floating air pinchers, like I've never been a fan of those, because even if you take like the Christie Craw or any of that, it's streamlined, and then you go over to the Strike King, even like a Rage Lobster or something is gonna collapse a little. I have always, this is me, and I want to get your thoughts on this, Frank. I have always thought that the effectiveness of simple plastics, a tube, a Cinco, a bait, a Ned, are baits that are streamlined with minimal or little action. But as a result, it is less risky or less dangerous for that fish to eat that bait, because a crayfish that has its defensive position up, if you watch that underwater, those smallmouth and those bass, unless it's as you would say, a mugambo, they'll pick on them, because they know that if they inhale that thing, where are those claws going to go? Right in the freaking gills.
Oh yeah,
right in their lungs. I mean, they're going to bite that thing, and it's going to go, and it's going to rip their lungs out. It's going to rip their gills out. How they freaking breathe.
Yeah, anytime a crayfish is in a standing position, it's the fight. It's the fight position.
And I think that's why that stuff is so effective, because it not only mimics nature, but it also is not a defensive position where those fish feel like the risk reward factor weighs heavily in the reward versus the risk.
Right, because you have to understand this something. They make their living eating these things. They're not stupid. They eat them all the time. So when that crayfish scoots and everything compacts and they're scooting backwards, okay, the bass literally run them down to get them.
Yep.
Because they're not going on guard, get out of here.
Come in. Come at me, bro.
Right. So it's more natural. Now, I kind of agree with that. I don't, you saw the trailers that I picked. None of them are going to flare out and do that. Now here's another thing. Okay.
Like the hands up. That's what we're talking. If you're listening on the podcast.
Right. So exactly. So it's like I've experimented with beaver style baits on football jigs, but I don't catch nearly the fish on them. But in cold weather, I'll put a beaver style bait on a jig and catch fish on them. It's just not, it doesn't lend itself well to the football jig. I want some kind of extra movement behind my skirt on the football jig, but it's really simple. I mean, I keep football jigging very simple, just like I keep my Carolina rigging very simple.
I like it. I like that box. I mean, you can get you 2 dozen. You can get, I would say, 3 dozen heads in those weights that you have, a dozen of each.
Easy.
I couple bags of skirts and a couple bags of trailers, and you've got 10 to 20 different combinations of weights, skirts, and trailers that you can mix and match to each other, and you always have a fresh football jig. The way you store it like that, you never have to worry about rubber band rot on your jig trailers. You never have to worry about that sticky gummy deal where the trailers start to kind of stick together or against the collar of the other one.
Right.
And then you never have any moisture in it. Your hook, you never have to worry about hook rust.
And my skirts are always nice and straight in the bag. So I'm not getting crimped up skirts that don't move or flare very well. So that's it. I mean, that's my entire jig box.
That's perfect. It's
been that way since day one in Bassmasters.
Couple questions on the instant feedback, and then we will give away the color 7 one knocker spook that is labeled that is number 14.
Color number 14.
Number 14. First one is, I noticed a couple of people noticed there was a rattle on that one. Do you always put the little rattle in the collar on the back when you're football jigging?
100%. I have a 125-gallon aquarium at home, and I had crayfish in the aquarium. I had crayfish, bass, crappie, and walleye in the aquarium, and I would sit there and you can listen to the crayfish and they tick and click underwater. You can hear them ticking and clicking. So I never, ever throw a football jig without a rattle. I don't know if you could hear that.
Yep, 100%.
But it's subtle. It's not a big clunky rattle. It's very subtle. It's
Okay.
it's the smallest one they make.
Okay. JT wants to know about living rubber. Two good questions here. Living rubber, which is the round or the square stuff. You just stick with
Right.
the straight skirts.
I stick with the standard because they don't have enough colors in living rubber.
Okay.
I have mixed them. I've mixed them when I hand tied my jigs. I would mix round living rubber with regular skirt material and bear hair. But that got to be a pain in the ass because I would have
catching
to
of the bear part.
Well, yeah, exactly. They hate when they hate getting their hair cut. You got to go after them when they're hibernating. But
imagine if you had to like actually go track down the Arctic fox or the bear.
Right, exactly. But I quit doing it because it got me to have to carry tons of different colored jigs and hair mixed, and my jig box became 2 or 3 jig boxes. Yeah. It's counterproductive. Look, when you're in the cast for cash game, especially, time is money. If it takes you 10 minutes to get something out of your boat, that's potentially fish you didn't catch. So I wanted a system that was simple and fast because I realized that, you know, like sitting down in your boat and during a tournament and eating a sandwich and just sitting there is a gross waste of time when you could eat the sandwich through a no wake zone or running your boat somewhere. So I did everything to optimize my fishing time, which is why my tackle systems are so refined because and everything is labeled. I don't have a box in my boat that doesn't have a label on it. So, dude, this is how anal. So even my crappie box is labeled. Okay.
I like that.
Because and I don't know why, because when I'm crappie fishing, I don't have anything else with me.
It's the only box in there.
But it's just my habit. You know what I mean? So when I open the tackle compartment on my boat, it's got everything in order. And I put the heaviest stuff forward. I put the heaviest stuff towards the console and the lighter boxes as it goes up the bow.
Okay.
Basically, we talked about that in the performance episode. But anyway.
Okay. Scent. No scent.
Now, I there was a time when I wouldn't not use it. But everything today, a lot of your soft plastics are already pre-scented. That stuff most of the time washes off after the first cast anyway. So
I got you. Great question, Clay. When you're done, do you take the skirt off, dry it out, and put everything back? How do you do once you build one? Or is it built and now you're fishing with it and then donating it to charity at the end?
When it's built and I'm fishing with it, if it's a busy day, it'll be destroyed by the end of the day anyway. So it doesn't matter. But my cats were pushing my computer lid down.
We can say hi to the cat.
Come here, babe. Come on.
Babe?
Bama. Come here.
Oh.
Yeah, the hell with it. It's a cat. They don't come when you call them.
If they thought there was food there, it'd be game over.
Yeah, if that cat thought I was eating something, it'd be on my shoulders.
Like a parrot.
Fighting me for it. Right, exactly. Fighting me for it. What the hell were we talking about?
I was just asking you some questions that all the listeners had.
Oh yeah,
as we wrapped up the
Okay, so real quick, what I'll do is if I use it and it's still in decent shape, I just dry it off and I'll put it back in the box. But then I'll use it again the next time I go, or I'll leave it on the rod and not even take it off the rod until it's destroyed. Because the one thing I don't want to do is put wet stuff back in the jig
Mhm.
box because rust is the enemy.
Yeah, that ruins the box. One last question. This is very important. How are you setting the hook on your football jig?
Oh, dude, I'm so glad you brought that up. Oh man, am I glad you brought that up. I never reel down and load up on them.
You don't.
They hit that football jig and I reel and I just sweep the rod. When you set the hook like you're flipping, you'll miss 90% of your fish. So I let them tighten up on me and then I just keep reeling and sweep the rod, just like my Carolina rig hook set. If you get a bite on a football jig and you hit them like a flipping stick, you're barely moving the jig in the water. You have
Yep.
too much line out. You're barely moving it. You got to tighten up on them and sweep it. And I always do it as sideways sweep on it, never overhead. Every time I get dummied up sometimes on them. If I'm coming over a big boulder and I'm lifting it up and they hit it up here, you're dummied up. You can't set the hook on them. So I always try to sweep sideways when I set the hook on.
My rule was if I was in a team tournament on Graham, before I set the hook, I'd always tell Juice, I'd say, there's one.
And he gets the hell out of the way.
Yeah. But that allows you, before you set the hook, you say, there's one. Mm-hmm. And that allows you to get that bow out of the line, reel down to the fish, and do the old cross leg step back as you sweep into it and just keep reeling.
Perfect. That's the hook set right there. I have fished with guys that set the hook like they're flipping, and they can't understand why they lose all them fish.
But this is real interesting. Rick Clun talked about it on Chris Aldane's podcast, and I've talked about it with guys when it comes to losing fish, and it's about keeping the hook point, the momentum of the hook point headed towards the boat. So I think that's key on a football head because you've got depth. So you've got a lot of displacement there to where you don't have a very great connection. Like you can go underwater and swim as far as you can underwater, hold a freaking football head like this on a long cast underwater and have your buddy set the hook and you can't hardly tell that he's setting the hook.
Right.
And especially then with the stretch, even in fluorocarbon, even if I've never gotten into the braid to fluoro on that, but the key then is after you sweep and stuff is to keep reeling.
Yeah, you have to
keep grinding that fish to the boat. Otherwise, it's going to come off, shaking its head. It's going to get slack in the line. It's going to come up. But after you sweep, you just got to fricking wind.
You keep winding. Here, look at this thing. All the weight is up forward. So if you've got this thing in the bass's jaw and he starts jumping around, this thing's doing everything.
You're screwed, for lack of a better term.
I keep the line tight and I keep the fish coming always, no matter how big it is either, because they'll fight you. Even if it's a big one, it'll fight you and you can keep pressure on them and tension on them and keep them coming. Don't be stupid about it, but you're not using an ultralight going, ooh, look at them fight. Ooh,
What else you got for this before we give away the limited number 14 to our viewer or listener who submitted or sent in any picture of them wearing any BTL paraphernalia?
I'm saying we ought to give it away.
We ought to give it away. All right. That was awesome. We had multiple different countries that participated in this. We had original BTL stuff. We had day 4 stuff. We had ice fishing. We had saltwater. We had freshwater. It was cool to see all the listeners who sent stuff in.
Yeah, it was good. Speaking about other countries, dude, tell me you don't want to go fish for barramundi.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
In a big fluffy way.
Dude, what you need to do is look up topwater Murray cod in Australia.
Oh my God, dude. I'm going to do that as soon as we get off the air.
So the winner that Frank and I decided on was Doug Stewart. Doug Stewart sent in
attaboy.
Really, really cool photos wearing his day 4 stuff.
Doug, you are the winner of color
Doug
14.
Stewart, shoot me an email, Matt at basszone.com, BASSZONE.com. All the other stuff is out, right, Frank? The drawings and all that.
That stuff's been mailed. All the drawings, all the illustrations went in tubes because they couldn't guarantee me if I flat packed them that they wouldn't bend.
Okay.
So I rolled them up and put them in tubes. So if you get a little tube in the mail, you know what it is.
Doug Stewart, STEWART. Shoot me an email, matt@bastzone.com. You have won the limited number 14 of the color number 7 one knocker.
That's money.
You will have an update on the one knockers next Thursday, right, Frank?
Yeah, absolutely. They're making them. They're making them. They'll be available in a few months. So those that didn't get them can.
So there's a number of different areas that people are in. Some got them, loved them. Right. We've seen the pictures. We've seen that. Some were called or got a letter from LureNet about the glitch and how it happened, and that the order didn't go through. And then some guys, like if you ordered a bunch, I think I got some emails from some people that basically are put on like back order that didn't get them. So
so I'll find out the reality of that back orders business, and then we'll talk about it Thursday.
Frank and I personally have nothing to do with the shipping and receiving portion of that. We're not in there, but we definitely want to make sure. And I've gotten all the emails and the messages of a lot of very, very satisfied, happy customers from LureNet. A lot of guys who were like, "Hey, I'm glad they were able to reach out because of the massive influx of emails and things." So LureNet literally, like they've had meetings about this. The BTL listeners have forced a meeting of the minds at LureNet over the response to the color number 7. So
they actually got on it literally right after they released it because the system was taking orders and the inventory wasn't keeping up.
Yeah.
So they literally got on it immediately. It's unfortunate, but it's going to be rectified, thank God, and they'll be available again.
And here's what I'm hoping. I hope I'm not talking out of turn here, though. But it showed how cool and how many people want your designs, Frank. So I'm hoping that this may translate in the future on LureNet to some Frank Scalish stuff on there, where your mind can go wild, where you have free reign of the custom colors.
Well, I have to be honest with you guys. I have a lot of stuff this year coming out in the paint shop.
Oh, heck yeah.
I have a lot of stuff coming on LureNet exclusives only. And I just did 12 brand new rogue colors for suspended rattling rogues and pro rogues. And all that stuff is coming up. But
also at the same time, a huge thank you to LureNet for listening to the BTL listeners and listening to Frank. And the process of getting the color number 7 wasn't, hey, here's the color that we want. Like, this is a long time in development, and there are hundreds and hundreds of ideas that come across the design board for those guys who are making those decisions over there, and the investment that they put in to get specific colors and baits from where they're made onto the paint shop, and taking that risk and saying, well, if this doesn't sell, we lose money on it. So huge shout out and respect to LureNet for taking the chance on the color number 7.
I didn't realize until I got involved more deeply into a lot of the lure brands. I didn't realize what was actually involved in getting something from beginning point A to XYZ to the market.
Insane.
It's ludicrous. It's ludicrous. And the risk is it's monumental. It's a monumental risk, because if you forecast incorrectly, you're stuck. You can make a choice and bring something in that's not a sellable unit. You're stuck. And this is all, this is all the stuff. Now you got to realize with the colors that I paint, I don't have 2 steps. Well, this is 3 steps. This is the easiest color in the world. They're 14 to 20 step process because of how I overlay pearls, transparencies, et cetera, et cetera. And these guys have to get it right, or it doesn't pass inspection, it doesn't go. So there's a lot of back and forth,
Mhm.
back and forth. There's a team of people that say yes, this product, yes, or no, this product, no. Like I worked on a lure that we can't get right. And I started it 6 years ago,
Holy cow.
and it is a lure that I'm dying for, but I can't. I made the prototypes of it. I got it close, but it needed to do a little bit something else, and it wasn't doing it all together. And I sent it to the engineers, and the engineers couldn't quite get it right. And we went down some rabbit holes. We came back, started from the beginning, went down another. Anyway, the long and short of it is, this particular item is not going to see the light of day because I think physically it's not going to work.
Mhm.
Mechanically, it's not
Yep.
going to do what I want it to do. And I don't want to make an offshoot of it that's
That's not
almost,
right.
yeah, that's
no, I hear you.
almost. So we're still playing with it, but it may never see the light of day, and it's 6 years in the making. So, so stuff like that. And this is stuff that I didn't realize back then. I thought you invented something and you made it,
Yeah,
but that's
there
not,
it is.
yeah, that's not how it works. Like when I did the speed end filled a void. It was an easy product. It worked right off the rip. Even my prototypes worked right off the rip. And I'm hand cutting everything and hand carving. I didn't have, machinery to do it. I did it by hand and it worked. So that was that was the easier one. And that bait literally about a year from start to finish.
Yeah.
So
Well, last point then, I'd also big shout out to LureNet. I mean, you could easily have bumped this thing up to $30 high debt, but the fact that it maintained. Now I would understand that if there's more steps to reasonably incrementally increase it, but there's a lot of companies that will take a demand and then gouge. Not gouge, but jump it up because it's a limited edition. And I thought it was awesome that LureNet kept it at the paint shop price. I specifically expected, I think they probably made less because of how many steps are involved and how long it take to make. I thought it was going to be and wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't just logistically a couple bucks more. But dude, it kept it at such a reasonable price that everyone could get their hands on one, which is an awesome stand-up thing for a company to do.
Well, that's pretty much how it works with all of our brands.
Yep.
I mean, we have a formula that we use and we try to adhere to it. Sometimes to my dismay.
I hear you.
Because, I mean,
hopefully I wasn't talking out of turn with any of that stuff that I said there, Frank.
No, dude. No, it's great. I mean, look, it's the idea is to put stuff out there that's good, great, and affordable. And that's the idea.
I like it. All right. Also, football head. The football head stuff was good, Frank.
I loved it.
I really enjoyed the football head show. That was easy. It's understandable. And something that everybody can do in the wintertime.
You got to keep it simple.
All right. This has been another edition of Day 4, episode number 102 with Frank Scalish. You want to do it again next week, Frank?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. We'll see everyone next Thursday. See ya.